What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com. And today I am looking forward to the One Championship and their third outing on Amazon Prime Video over in the US and Canada. They have, as always, a mixed card here with some MMA fights, some there's a bit of jiu-jitsu on it. There is some very good Muay Thai on it as well. Obviously, I'm going to concentrate here on the mixed martial arts, being an MMA reporter, obviously on the MMA website. But just to quickly mention, I suppose, some of the Muay Thai and other things that are on this before I get into the mixed martial arts. You have a lightweight Muay Thai World Championship bout between Clinmy and Regan Ersal here. Very interesting one. I actually watched both of their last fights. Papayak against Superlek for the flyweight Muay Thai World Grand Prix final. Very, very exciting. The last time out, both of them was one of the ones where you watch both of them and you're thinking, oh, that's going to be an interesting one when they fought. I believe they fought on the same card, didn't they, a couple of months back, and now they're back here to take each other on in the final. You know, obviously no kickboxing expert or Muay Thai expert, but a banger is in store there, I think, between those two lads, indeed. Then on the lead card, there is a bantamweight Muay Thai and a flyweight Muay Thai fight. Asa Timpao from the United States is taking on Mehdi Tatout from Algeria, and Takai Naito is taking on Amir Nasiri at flyweight. And then there's also a grappling matchup for the lightweight submission grappling world championship that one have, and it's Uali Kurzev against Cade Riatolo. Obviously Cade was on a card a couple of weeks or a couple of months back. I was talking to my guy Andrew McGahan about it at the time, and he was telling me these Riatolo brothers are legit and are some of the best guys in the submission grappling world at the moment. So I'm interested to see it, because the last time, do you know what I love as well about these? I see the MMA fights, I break them down, or even if we're watching the UFC or watching Bellator or Cage Warriors or whatever, and I know them, and I've known them for years, and maybe I need to be reminded of them, and I maybe need to look at the two styles together and see what way the fight is going to go down, as I will do here in a few minutes. But I come into this kind of not knowing what they're going to be like Mikey Musumeci and the last One Championship card. I was like, this guy is amazing. I want to see him again, even though I went to the decision. It was 10 minutes in the middle of the card. I want to see him again, and I think that's actually like a really kind of cool thing to have for someone who watches a sport and obviously covers a sport and is a fan of the sport, like everyone watching here, where we kind of need to know everything. Now, it's harder nowadays to know everything than it ever was, but we're on Sherdog here, the home of the hardcores, I suppose, and like, back in the day, if you couldn't tell me the early fights of Fedor Emelianenko or the exact record of, Rich Franklin, or Rich Franklin was a championship, or Fedor was one of the biggest ever, but you know what I mean, someone who, like, I don't know, Caro Parisian or something like that, you'd be called a casual. So it's good to, like, not know a bit and to come into things, I suppose, with that kind of open mind and to see how it goes, and to be kind of, I suppose, to be shocked. Like, if you go in and you watch a Kamaru Usman fight and you see this brilliant jab, you're not going to be shocked by it. It's brilliant, but you're not going to be shocked by it. But if you don't know it, you can come in and be shocked by it. And I kind of, do you know what? I like that from One Championship, and I like that it gives me that in my combat sports watching these days, because we don't get that from any of the other mixed martial arts promotions, because obviously they stick to mixed martial arts. Now we have maybe a little bit with people coming through, maybe that we wouldn't know over, for me obviously over in the States, or for maybe people listening to this in the States, the likes, maybe a Paul Hughes or Ian Gary or whoever, Lee Hammond coming through. In Ireland you might get that, but in general, someone at the top of their game, to be kind of an unknown to some people in the combat sports world, I think is a bit different, and very good, and I really like it. So let's talk about the MMA. And before we talk about the MMA, obviously John Lineker is main eventing this card, and I'll get to him last. I'll go from the bottom to the top in terms of the MMA action on this card. But one thing I wanted to just speak about on this card, because John Lineker is on it and he is, one of the big names that One Championship have, I'm very interested to see the tactics of One Championship over the next couple of years, because I mentioned it on the last preview that Chatri was on the MMA with Ariel, and he's even spoken here, I know before on Sherdog and other places about his tactics for getting to One Championship to where he wants to get him, spending lots of money and a lot of investment and getting a lot of investment. He talked about on Ariel's show about getting over $1 billion more, I think, in investment. And I just wonder, and I say with John Lineker, I wonder which top fighters, or if they will be going after top fighters in a kind of a more obtuse way than they ever have. And obtuse is the wrong word, but in a more stringent or strong way than they ever have before. Because I actually think there is the ability to get bigger name fighters now more than there ever has been. I'll tell you why. I don't think Bellator are trying for him as much as they once were. PFL are, but PFL have only a certain amount of places in their cards, and I think there's only a certain amount of places who are willing or able to pay people enough money to entice them away from the UFC as well. And if One Championship are that, with the amount of investment they are getting, or hope to getting again I hope to get again in the future, I wonder would, let's say, I don't know, Dustin Poirier is out of contract in his next fight. Let's say, I'm not sure if he is. He could have a 10-fight contract for online, but let's say he is. Like, will One Championship go after him, or even someone who's closer to their, maybe let's say a Sean O'Malley. I know he just signed a new contract, but let's say he beats Yan and he fights his next 3 fights, and then he's out of contract. Like, will One Championship go after him, or will they go after maybe a Derek Lewis, or will they go after a Darren Till, or will they go after some big name people, Nate Diaz? Will they try to get them? They've already signed Soldic. That's a very interesting thing. I think One Championship have actually they've done a pretty good job of signing the big names, but not too many. Like we see, I don't know, people that know AEW, they sign lots of big names from WWE, and I think they signed too many. To which point that people don't like them as much anymore, because it's like, it's just WWE. We don't want it to be like, whether you're Bellator and you're looking at it from your point of view, you're like, we don't want it to be UFC light. One Championship don't want to be UFC light. PFL don't want to be UFC light, and I think PFL have probably done the best job. Now, PFL have kind of started out that way, and so did Bellator, I suppose, as well. But Bellator changed, I think, when Coker came in. But PFL maybe had an advantage of starting out with maybe not as much money, or maybe just putting on, a certain, a certain band of fighter, if you want to put it that way, from a certain management company, or maybe we see that a lot in MMA. That's not an unusual thing, or a certain locality even, maybe. So I wonder what the One Championship way will be over the next few years, and I suppose that's something to find out. But it's also something I just wanted to throw out there, and something maybe we can think about and see when a name comes up. Even like Shane Burgos when he left the UFC recently, like, war One Championship for him, or will they be in for names like that over the next while? I think they've reached a stage now where they have more cards and they have the ability to take a few more people like that. John Lineker was a great one to take, because he's such a likeable, lovable fan favourite. Demetrius Johnson, the greatest fighter of all time to take, of course. Eddie Alvarez, fan favourite as well. So they've been wise in the people that they actually have taken. And I wonder how they will do that in the future. So let's get into some of the fights here. One of the opening fights of the night is Leah Bivins. She's taking on Noelle Grandjean. Leah was supposed to fight a couple of weeks ago, and I believe her fight fell out. Now, I've done my best to find some Leah fights. I know she said 3. This is her pro debut. But she said 3. I think. Let me just pull up her record here and chart again. Yeah, 3 fights over on the IMAFs back in 2019. She won all of them inside the distance. And I actually went to one of my friends worked for IMAF, and I asked him, like, do you have these videos? And they're not, apparently they're not there. So there's no real footage of Leah. I tried my best. I looked for all of her fights. What I did find was she apparently does a lot of wrestling. Apparently he's like a really good athlete. Now, haven't been able to find too much of her, as I said, but I'm interested. It's always interesting, I said, to see the unknown as well, and it'll be interesting to see what she's like here. There's, a bit of hype coming in, being in the IMFs, winning 3 fights in the IMFs, the level is very, very good there, and apparently her wrestling and grappling is very, very good. Noelle Grandjean on the other side in, I did manage to watch a couple of her fights, one of which was kind of a massive I suppose one-sided sort of fight. It was outside of one championship. It was in I think it was over in France or somewhere, where she just took down her opponent and absolutely decimated her on the ground. It was actually in Thailand, sorry, the fight happened. She took her down, her opponent, and absolutely decimated her on the ground. But she has very good wrestling, very good grappling, judoka as well. I saw her, she's been in some high-level judoka matchups and things as well. She's fighting out of France, so it'd be interesting to see. It seems like Bivins is a very good wrestler, very good grappler. Be interesting maybe to see that grappling tested against someone who's a very good grappler in a different way with the judoka. So, like for Bivins, I suppose in her pro debut, Grandjean is a very, very good fighter. To be meeting someone, I suppose, that good in your pro debut, I suppose, shows what they think of her. I'm looking forward to seeing the coverage and seeing how she fights and seeing where she goes. So, interesting fight to open up the card there. And it's interesting as well that one championship we're putting on these sort of fights and building people up from, like we saw with Sam Fairtex. So maybe she'd make her debut, but it was 1 or 2 fights into her career. And I kind of like that as well from promotions, build them up from the very opening of their careers. The next fight on the card is very interesting. I really like this one. Jeremy Miado against Danial Williams. People probably know Danial Williams, a very, very good kickboxer. He fought Rotang in was it a Muay Thai or kickboxing match, a stand-up match anywhere there recently. Absolute rock'em sock'em robots fight that was. Williams is one of those guys where his hands never stop. He just throws shots constantly. Throws a lot of body kicks as well. They do get him taken down sometimes. I wouldn't say he's the world's best takedown events, but he's very good at getting back up from takedowns. What I really love about Daniel Williams, and anyone who knows me and knows the way I talk about mixed martial arts will know I love a jab, and I love his jabs. But the way he jabs kind of high and low is so perfect. It's so good. It's really, really good. And I think that's a thing in all fights, but especially in this Miado fight we'll talk about in a second when I talk about Miado, that could be very useful for him. Last time out, I think there was less high kicks, more calf kicks from Williams, which I think is good. Less chance of a takedown, When I say high kicks, I mean high in the leg as well as high on the body. Less chance of takedowns, huge power in that right hand, and I think he's become. Maybe it's because I watched him in Muay Thai and then in MMA, but I think he's becoming maybe more boxing orientated. I'd be interested to see maybe if someone in the press conference something I would ask him about that. But to me, he looked like he's becoming a more boxing orientated fighter in mixed martial arts, which I think is good for him. Takes away that, as I said, the ability to take him down from a leg kick or something like that. So very interesting fighter is Daniel Williams. Jeremy Miado in on the other side, very tall, very, very tall, moves a lot on the outside. I'd compare him a little bit. It's funny, the 2 people I've written down here in my notes, Conor McGregor and Dominic Cruz. He is very, very, very movement oriented on the outside. Fights in the orthodox, but switches, he races in with combos. And he loves that uppercut. And that's the combination, or that's the shot that I compared him with Conor McGregor, that uppercut. We often saw McGregor landing it, but he throws it so much, and it's really, really, really good. Do you know what? His height as well. His height does 2 things. Leaves him open for a leg kick, first of all, which I think Daniel Williams, and I said he throws more of the calf kicks, even though he's becoming more boxing oriented. I think he will target that leg, and I would be surprised if in the first 10 seconds Daniel Williams doesn't either kick him really hard or knock him down with a leg kick. Honestly, that's my prediction for this fight. Daniel Williams to knock Miado down with a leg kick in the opening 15 seconds of this fight. But on an offensive or a positive side of view, the height, he throws like this step in head kick. Now you're probably thinking, Sean, what's a step in head kick? But he literally takes a step to the left and throws his right heel, kind of lifting it like a volley in a game of soccer or something like that, when his opponents are so much smaller than him but bend a little bit. And he throws it. He's thrown it a good few times now in the fights I watch, and he's really, really good at it. Like really good at it. Maybe Will Williams be open for that? Maybe not. Maybe you won't see it in this fight, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on in this fight, but going forward as well. Miado's very good takedown defense. I'm not sure he'll need it here. He loves to enter with power, very little setup. Doesn't really throw jabs, doesn't really throw leads that much. As I said, loves the uppercut, but the lack of a setup works very well for him. He's very quick and very, very accurate. But the problem is here, and that's his game. So if we look at the fight in general, is that kind of barreling forward power style going to work against someone as technically good and kickboxing orientated as a Danial Williams? I find that hard to believe, to be honest. The one thing I would say was, like, how good is Miado on the ground? I haven't seen much of it, to be honest. I haven't seen much of his takedowns or anything like that. He is a striker like Williams. I do think this will be a striker matchup. And I do think the power of Miado will be a big factor if he can land it. If he can't, you have to say Williams is a technically better all-around striker. And I think, if I was to give a pick there, I would go for Williams. My pick in the first fight, I've never seen Bivins, so it's hard to pick her, but I'll go for Bivins. Why not? The next fight then, we have Jimwei Wong against Kim Jae Wong against Shamil Gasanov. Gasanov 6 submissions from 8 wins. My word I described him here in my notes: twitchy. He's a twitchy, aggressive fighter. Throws lots of kicks. He's a big guillotine, a big overhand right. Loves to shove lads against the cage. Very athletic is the word I would use for him. Everything he does is looking for wrestling. Everything he does is looking for wrestling. And that makes him a fearless puncher. And that phrase, fearless puncher, I've been thinking about that since watching his fights over the last couple of days. We have Makhachev coming up fighting here in the UFC next week. And I think he's more of like a tactical puncher, but you see Oliveira is more of a fearless puncher because he's happy enough to get the fight to the ground. Habib was a fearless puncher because he was happy to get inside to get the fight to the ground. That's what I think Gasanov is like. Now, I'm not comparing him to Habib or Oliveira, but I'm comparing him in the fearless punching way. And I think that is a very good way of fighting if you're as good a wrestler and as good at getting lads in submissions as Shamil Gasanov is. Very strong on top. Very, very, very strong on top. But good all around, and an underrated striker maybe for how good his grappling is. For Kim then, very tight defensively. That's the first thing I notice about him. He likes to push the pace with his footwork. He knocked out Martin Wynn there a couple of fights ago. His outside leg kick is very good. He's a rapid counter puncher. Really, really quick. That's how he got the knockout against Wynn. He comes to life in the exchanges. He kind of, as fast as he is in the counters, he's a little bit slow on the outside, but I think he does that on purpose. He fools you into thinking he's willing to wait on the outside. He loves to throw the right hand into the left counter hook. That's the danger. When you get him in the pocket, it's usually you who starts that, and it's usually him who wins it because he throws that right and he goes with that big left hand inside. He doesn't lead much. He walks into range and he lets you throw, which is very dangerous. Tankai knocked him out because of that. He's a good clinch, lands from the break. He's strong on top, but would rather get up. So I think this is a very, very interesting fight if it goes a certain way. If Gasanov is able to go in and take down Kim, it's not going to be very interesting, I don't think. It might be interesting in terms of Gasanov. Like, I think if Gasanov does take him down, he's either going to dominate him for the full fight or he's going to finish him with a submission. So it might be interesting in that way, but you know what I mean? Not interesting in terms of a good fight between two very, very good fighters. I think it could be a domination if it goes that way. But if it stays on the feet for periods, or not even stays on the feet, but it is on the feet for periods, I think it's going to be very interesting. Because I talked about Gasanov being a fearless puncher, and Kim is like a fearless counter puncher. And he literally, like, when I say he lets you walk in, he's a fearless puncher as well. He lets you walk into his range and punch him so he can counter you. Like, he literally does that. Now, maybe he doesn't do it on purpose in terms of letting you punch him. Maybe he does let you come into the range. Maybe, I'm sure he doesn't want to take the punch in the face, but what he does want is to draw the counter from himself. Draw the lead so he can counter. So he draws you in, makes you lead, and then he counters you. Gasanov would be absolutely happy to lead. You know, that's the way he fights. He walks in. And if you have a fearless puncher against a fearless counter puncher, by God, that means someone's probably getting hurt there. Now, that is all predicated on Gasanov not being maybe wrestled first, which he can be at times, but a lot of his takedowns are from the fearless punching. Very interesting fight. Very, very interesting fight. I'd have to go for Gasanov. I just think that wrestling advantage will be an advantage. Although Kim is strong and he's good takedown defense and good clinch and all of that, but yeah, and he has the experience and all that. But I think Gasanov will get the win there. And in the main event, the bantamweight world championship for one is on the line. John Lineker against Fabricio Andrade. Obviously, we know Lineker. I'll talk about him in a second. But Andrade, he's a southpaw, big and tall. He's a very fast one too. You notice it. Very quick body kicks as well. Kind of a karate stylist. A lovely kind of switch left hand. Not so much as not switch is probably the wrong word, but kind of like a. The only thing I can think of as fast as it is a switch, it's like a whipping left hand, but a straight. I don't know, like an exocet. It's like a shotgun left hand or something. Comes straight down the middle at you. It's so good, like really, really good from Andrade. And one very interesting thing as well, and we'll get to this in a second when I talk about the actual breakdown of the fight, but forward pressure. He loves forward pressure. He's fighting John Lineker, so we'll talk about that in a second. But he can get taken down because of that forward pressure, and I think that could be an interesting thing here as well. But he does get back up very well. He loves the step in knee. Very, very, very confident counter striker as well. So we've a lot of that in this card, I suppose, of confident counter strikers, and he definitely is one. You know, his opponent John Lineker is one as well. You know, we all know John Lineker, I suppose, at this stage. Kind of that slow-paced, methodical again, pressure fighter, holds out that lead hand all the time, throws the outside leg kick, loves the left hook counter, loves the hooking combinations, loves hook to the body, hook to the body, hook to the head, or hook to the body, hook to the head, hook to the body. So good at that. Leaves himself massively open at times, but is willing to take that chance, especially when his opponent is hurt. Now, he doesn't leave himself massively open when his opponent isn't hurt. A lot of the time, he does a bit. But when his opponent is hurt, he will go hell for leather. Absolutely hell for leather. And as I said earlier on with the takedowns, sometimes that leads him to land on top. You know, he's just kind of going forward. There's madness. His opponent kind of falls over and John Lineker lands on top. Or there's a knockdown and his opponent kind of, pulls him in maybe a little bit and he does land on top. He's taken down by Bibiano. But he's usually very wise on the outside, likes the guillotine position as well. You know, he was at Cisco Rivera. He tapped out with a guillotine, but does that often because he's so strong in his upper body and he's good at holding people in that position, but also has the guillotine and is able to finish guys with it. So it's a very, very interesting one. Now, the key to this fight, without a shadow of a doubt, is that forward pressure. Both guys want that forward pressure. Both guys want to push the pace. And not that the forward pressure in itself is going to win it, as we know with judging. But I think both guys are more likely to land what they need to land with the forward pressure. You know, Lineker and Andrade can both counter. They can both land shots and counters. But they want to go forward. Like Andrade's body kicks, he needs to go forward to land them the way he wants to land them. To land his left hand, which is absolutely brilliant, he needs to go forward to land it. He needs to stop the takedown by going forward to land it. Now, as I said, John Lineker, I don't think he's going to be double-legging him often in this fight. Maybe he'll do it a couple of times. I actually think he should, but he needs to do all that. Lineker, like, when do you ever see Lineker like step back, left hooking a guy, knocking him out? Maybe it's happened once or twice. I can't remember, but he is a guy. You look at John Lineker. If there was a silhouette of John Lineker, it'd be plodding forward motion. That's what John Lineker is, and he needs that to win, I think. So it's all down to that. Whoever can get that forward motion and keep it, they'll win the fight. And if they can't keep it, maybe it's one where one gets forward motion, the other gets the forward motion. Maybe Andrade, I think his height and his reach, I think he has the openings to fight him a different fight and win it that way. I don't think Lineker has. Now, Lineker might need it, because if he wins the forward motion game, I think he will win the fight. It's an interesting one. I would favour Lineker. I just think that power is going to be too much for Andrade. I think he is quick, but he's going to need to be very quick. His footwork is going to have to be very good on the outside to stop Lineker cutting off the cage and getting inside and landing those big shots. We know in one championship as well, they have the yellow cards and they have the referee who loves action, which is great. I'm all for that. And I think that could work against Andrade a little bit and could play into the favour of John Lineker. So, very interesting fight. I'm very much looking forward to it. And as I said, I'll go with Lineker, but I wouldn't be surprised if I woke up on Sunday morning or Saturday morning, whatever it is, and Andrade had won. So, I will leave it there. So, it's 4 very exciting mixed martial arts fights with some grappling and some striking as well thrown in for everyone. And should be a good night in the card before as well. 162, I have a preview for that out as well. Check that out, please. And I'll leave it there. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.